I've been needing one because I don't have air conditioning in my kitchen, and I was wanting one just like this. Analog and simple living are having a moment right now. People are picking up paper planners, dusting off record players, choosing a physical book over a scroll, and leaving the phone behind for a walk. There's this collective hunger for something slower, something real, something you do with your hands instead of your thumbs, and I love it. I have leaned towards a more old-fashioned and analog life for decades, and I have been quietly raising, for the most part, analog kids. I just never called it that. As homeschoolers, it makes it pretty natural and easy to embrace a more analog lifestyle. But then we also have our small farm or homestead, and that has a way of drawing a person into a more analog world. Turns out soft and silky little baby bunnies feel better on the heart and hands than a tablet. And it turns out good old farm chores, balanced with playful projects, still have a way of building good young men, strong, responsible, and engaged with real life instead of living through a screen. But of course, there are all kinds of ways to be an analog family, and I know because we haven't always had the life that we have right now. But as a mom of 6, I don't think the swaps alone are the whole story. I think it takes 2 things working together to actually raise a grounded, capable kid. I think it takes analog swaps and old-fashioned skills. Swaps are the small everyday choices. Paper over an app, an instrument, or another hobby, a garden over a video game, a book over a scroll, a record player over a playlist. These things slow a home down. Old-fashioned skills are the deeper layer underneath. The cooking, the gardening, the sewing, the caring for animals, working with your hands long enough to actually get good at something. On their own, a swap is just a lifestyle choice. And a skill, without the slower pace around it, without the joy, well, it just becomes another chore. But you put them together and they can become vehicles. They teach kids to think critically instead of just consume. They build real, transferable life skills, and they can enrich a childhood and honestly, a whole family life in a way that I don't think much else can. You see, skills without a purpose, they either become hobbies or, as I said, chores and drudgery. Skills with a purpose can become a legacy. And that's what I want to talk about today, the old-fashioned skills and the analog choices that we have made, because I believe these are worth more than money. And I want to share a few of the stories from my own childhood because that's exactly where I first learned what these things build in a kid. Now first, I want to share why we can't and don't need to go fully analog. It's not realistic for most of us to go fully analog. If you're a mom running a home, maybe a homeschooling mom on top of it, or maybe you're raising animals or keeping a big garden, maybe running a side gig or a part-time business or a full-time business. Going all analog, it's just not going to work if you're doing any of those things. We still need calendars that sync and phones for work and for keeping in touch. We still need the conveniences that help us keep a handful of people fed, scheduled, and functioning. So this isn't about throwing away everything modern that you own. It's about finding a way to incorporate analog and old-fashioned skills in a practical way for women that have more to do than just take care of their self. This is about choosing a few analog things on purpose, things that slow us down in a healthy way, not in a non-productive way, things that can ground our kids and pull us out of the rush enough to help us feel like we're standing on solid ground. So here are a few of the analog swaps that have actually stuck in our home over the decades. My top all-time running favorite for over 40 years is to get outside. Of course, when I was a child, it was to play. Now it's to garden and do other activities outside. I have a lot of childhood memories, and the best ones were always outdoors. The second one is a paper planner. I love my paper planner. I designed it. I use it constantly. I've got a couple different variations. You can find them all on my website, my shop. But I have tried to switch to digital planners so many times, and it's never once worked. There's something about writing by hand that makes things stick in the brain in a way that a screen never does. There's something calming about it. Recently, we took on a really fun project and we made over a couple of my boys' rooms. I will show you the final result in just a few moments, but one of the swaps we made was analog alarm clocks, and I'll tell you why in just a moment. But first, I want to tell you about who helped us do an important and needed swap in this room. I want to take a quick break to thank Quince for sponsoring today's video. One of the old-fashioned skills that I'm teaching my children is that our home is something that we care for. We don't just constantly replace things because we're tired of them. We learn to take care of what we have. And when something truly does need replacing, we choose quality pieces that are going to last. As part of making over my boys' bedroom, I knew they needed some new sheets. Their old bedding had definitely seen some years of use, and I wanted to give them something comfortable, practical, and timeless. I chose these organic, crisp gingham sheets from Quince, and they have that classic look that fits perfectly with the kind of simple, cozy home that we're creating. They're made from 100% organic cotton with a crisp, breathable feel that keeps them comfortable all year long. I love that they're made in a fair trade certified factory and produced with responsible practices, including recycling and reusing 99% of the water used. I use Quince because I am looking for quality places that are made to last without paying huge markups. Quince brings together elevated clothing, bedding, cookware, and home essentials using premium material like organic cotton, Mongolian cashmere, and buttery soft bamboo, all while being 50 to 80% less than similar brands. Download the Quince app for app-exclusive offers or go to quince.com/mountainmama. Get free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. Now available in Canada and the UK too. That's QUINCE.com/mountainmama. The bedroom makeover could not have turned out better. The whole family, plus some, had a little bit of an effort in pulling this together. This was for my youngest son and one of my middle sons who share the room. My middle son loves everything forestry. He's considering a career in it, and so that's the direction we took this room. And one of the most fun swaps that we made in this room was good old-fashioned analog battery-operated alarm clocks for the kids. I am telling you, in our home, the digital ones are a waste of money and they do not work. For one, where we live, the power goes out a lot. And every time it does, it seems like it takes a month for the kids to get them changed back over and then reset. During which time, the entire farm and everybody's schedule, including the animals, get disrupted. But if you have a battery operated one, it's going to keep people on track even if the power goes out or if the clock somehow gets unplugged. Another one is good old-fashioned board games. Last weekend, the kids had friends over and all of us, grown-ups included, we all sat down to play a really fun game. I'm sure the whole mountain heard our peals of laughter. It was some of the most fun I've had in a long time. The stress just melted away like hot wax. Another great analog swap is actual books instead of reading things online. And a good alternative, if you're short on time, is audio books. We do a combination of books and audiobooks, and of course we read material online as well. but we try to opt for either a real book or an audiobook whenever possible. Kind of goes without saying, probably, but a great screen time analog swap is spending a free hour in the garden instead of on the couch, scrolling, or in front of a screen. It's such a part of our lifestyle that I keep a basket here. I probably need to get into one. This one is starting to fall apart, but this is our seed basket. I keep it here so that it's easy to grab as I walk out the door. Gardening is my favorite screen time swap and one of my favorite ways to spend time with the kids, because when I get outside, when I'm in the garden, I have memories from lessons learned throughout my life, and somehow being out there and being with the kids in nature brings to mind all kinds of valuable lessons that I want to pass on to them. Now, I'm going to be honest, our first couple of years of gardening as a family were rough. We had to get through some grumbling years, but we did. And now I want to say around half, if not more of the time when we're all in the garden together, there's at least one, if not more moments where everybody is goofing off and laughing over something somebody said or did. In fact, one time I sent the boys out to do something in the garden and I didn't go with them, and I happened to look out the window and they were wheelbarrow surfing. Picture that. I'll let your imagination do the work there. It was quite humorous. Another one is notebooks. I love just simple old plain notebooks. I love it so much more than using the notebook app on the phone. I love them for lists, for journaling, keeping track of things, notes. I think one of my old favorites that I will always love is cookbooks, straight off the shelf. I have one son who's honestly a little bit of both worlds. He'll bounce between using the internet for finding recipe ideas, but then you'll find him with Julia Child's The Art of French Cooking on the next day. I love that he moves seamlessly between the two instead of only ever reaching for a screen. A really super fun one that may or may not work for you is a record player. I bought one for my daughter for Christmas. It's so much fun. Another one that we have not always done, but that is just so precious and makes such a difference, is family dinner at the table instead of just family dinner plopped around the TV. Now, in our home, we have people eating at all kinds of different times. My husband, he used to work as a farmhand, and so he would come in, a lot of times after the kids had gone to bed, or maybe just before they went to bed. So he's not been around for dinner time for a lot of our marriage, and a lot of the kids' upbringing. But for the last several years, he has been around more often. Still, now we've got older kids, and it's just harder to get everybody together at the same time for dinner. Family dinner just, it doesn't always work out, but when it does, it is wonderful. And so we try to make a goal of that. Now, none of these swaps are dramatic. None of them require you to give up your phone or move off grid. But each one is a small, deliberate choice to slow down. And then there are the deeper, old-fashioned skills, the ones that take more than a simple swap, the ones that take practice, time, standing shoulder to shoulder with your kids. I think that many people are drawn to old-fashioned skills right now because, whether they realize it or not, they're longing for something we've just slowly lost over the decades. And it's the language of working with the hands. For generations, kids learned by standing beside their parents. They learned because the work needed to be done. They learned how to cook because, we all need to eat. They learned how to preserve food because food needed to be preserved and last. And they learned how to grow food because this mattered. And whether we realize it or not, it still does. And it probably matters more, if not more now, just as much as ever. Kids also learned that skills weren't just Instagram hobbies. They were part of life. And I think there's something deeply grounding about returning to that. In a world filled with constant notifications, endless and addictive, life-altering entertainment, video games, digital noise, there's something powerful about putting your hands into something real, like a bowl of bread dough, or a garden bed, or opening a jar of food you preserve yourself, or getting some berries out of the freezer that you picked from last summer. And something about all of it reminds us we are capable, we can create, and we can contribute. That's true leveling up in life, not just achieving a new level on a video game. I think it's just heartbreaking how society sees plopping a kid down in front of the screen for entertainment okay, and yet it tries to put parents that are trying to teach their children life skills, that are taking on the task of homeschooling, it likes to kind of fling them under a microscope. So backwards. See, for me, this isn't something I discovered recently. My love for the old-fashioned skills, way of life, started when I was just a child. When I was 5 years old, my mom and my stepdad and I moved far away from the life that we knew. And my mom and stepdad began building a completely different kind of life than what society thought was the norm. It was during the late Back to the Land movement, which was a countercultural migration that started in the 60s and spanned into the 70s. And this deeply influenced my way of life and who I am today. That style of life is what we call homesteading today. We didn't use that word for it back then, though. For a season, our family lived off-grid, about an hour from civilization. Looking back now as an adult, I know there were so many challenges involved in that lifestyle. But as a child, I, of course, didn't understand any of that. But what I did understand was the wonder of it and the benefit of that kind of a lifestyle for kids. I remember the woods, the beautiful woods. I remember exploring. I remember animals and gardens and learning that there was an entire world happening outside our door, far beyond the screens. And those experiences planted something in me. And that's where I developed my love for the forest, gardening, herbs, animals, and learning how things work and being sustainable. Now, eventually we moved from that little off-grid place to somewhere smaller, but we were still in the woods and we were still carrying on as many of our homesteading skills as we could. That's where we started raising chickens for eggs and meat. And I have to laugh because nobody knew anything about ADHD when I was growing up, but I definitely had it. Checking eggs was not my favorite chore because I would forget. I would get distracted somewhere between the door of the house and the chicken coop. I would get lost exploring and see about 100 different things that were calling for my attention. And I remember chicken processing day. That was a day I actually loved. I think what I loved most about that day was working side by side by my stepdad, who was always very cheerful on chicken processing day. He had a way of making that hard and arduous work fun. I think part of his enjoyment, looking back, was watching me chase chickens around trying to catch them. I still remember the twinkle in his eye and the chuckle in his voice. But looking back now, I realize those moments were teaching me things that would become incredibly valuable later in life. They were teaching me how a present adult, a joyful adult, working with a child can make the most precious memories that will last and impress upon a lifetime. I remember learning resourcefulness, responsibility. I remember learning how to take joy in the work and pride in my work. I was learning how something difficult was not impossible and that it gave me confidence and taught me that I am capable. And I learned from all of that how to pass that on to my own children. So by the time I was a teenager, I was learning everything I possibly could about homemaking and old-fashioned skills, gardening, herbs, cooking, preserving food. And those skills have followed me through every season of my adult life. And they've probably saved me thousands upon thousands of dollars. I've been working as a homemaker for over 33 years, and I can tell you, knowing how to make the most of what you have is an incredible value, especially when money is tight. Those old-fashioned skills, man, they just last, and they have a way of paying off. The skills have saved our family, as I said, thousands of dollars. When you can take a bag of flour and make several loaves of bread, when you can grow a garden and eat off of it for like 75% of the year, when you can take a few simple ingredients and whip together a nourishing dinner, and when you know how to do these things, your family has options and independence. Have you ever thought of your home as a living classroom? You see, I've intentionally built all of these old-fashioned skills into rhythms in our home, and I believe that the home is one of the greatest classrooms a child will ever have. Now, I'm not saying every moment of it is going to be, a walk in the park. But I am saying ordinary moments can become opportunities for just the sky's the limit, so many things. Making stew becomes a lesson in cooking. Feeding sourdough becomes a lesson in patience. Growing food becomes a lesson in stewardship. Caring for animals becomes a lesson in responsibility. Working through a problem instead of looking it up becomes a lesson in critical thinking. Writing things down in a paper planner instead of trying to type it into a phone becomes a lesson in slowing down. It's a lot less irritating too. I don't know about you, but I got fat thumbs and I'm always hitting the wrong keys. Somewhere in the middle of all these ordinary tasks, there's conversations. There is lots and lots of laughter and memories being created. The work matters, but the relationship built while doing the work matters even more. Now here's where the analog conversation gets a little more serious. Our kids are growing up in a very different world. A world where entertainment is always available, where screens are always calling for their attention. Now, I'm not saying technology has no place, it does. But we need to ask ourselves, at what cost? What are we training our children to do? Are we mostly teaching them to consume? Or are we giving them opportunities to think, to problem solve, to create? Because those are two very different things. I notice in my home when my kids have too much screen time, they're often less content, irritable. Children need more than entertainment. They need purpose. One of the reasons that we wanted a homesteading lifestyle is because we knew that this would help keep us grounded and with our feet on the ground. Do you guys remember the book Charlotte's Web? What About Farmer Boy and the Little House on the Prairie books? Those were my favorite growing up. And I read them over and over and over again. And they really had an impact on my views as a child that carried over into my life. You see, they weren't just stories about farms. They were stories about resourcefulness, connection, seasons, animals. They were stories about love and families working together. A homemade meal, a garden planted in the spring, a family gathered around the table, and a reminder that simple does not mean insignificant. My favorite quote from Charlotte's Web is, "There's no place more wonderful than a farm in springtime." As a child, I had been to some farms in the springtime. And, of course, we had some homesteading practices ourselves. So I knew for a fact that there was no greater place, not to me. And I knew that that was the kind of life I wanted for my children. And I do have to admit, in all my 20 plus years of being a parent, I would have to say the farm is one of the best ways I've found to keep my kids grounded in real life and involved in something living. Now, you don't have to have a farm, but some bunnies or chickens, they definitely do help. I would love to hear from you. What is one skill someone taught you that you still use today? Maybe it was cooking, gardening, sewing, preserving food, fixing something, or a family tradition. Tell me in the comments, because I think these small lessons often become some of the biggest gifts we carry, and we never know what we share might inspire others. Research shows that kids benefit from time outdoors, hands-on learning, responsibility, and meaningful participation. But honestly, we don't need a study to tell us what we've already seen. Kids who are allowed to participate in real life, they begin to understand that they have value, that their choices matter. They learn patience and compassion. They learn they're capable. There's a verse in Proverbs that's always stood out to me. She looks well to the ways of her household and does not eat the bread of idleness. I love this because it reminds us that the work we do in our homes matters. Teaching our children skills matters. Building a home where people learn, grow, and serve one another matters. I think we live in a time where we often measure wealth by what we own, but I believe there's another kind of wealth. The ability to make something from almost nothing. The confidence to solve problems, the patience to learn, the joy of meaningful work. Those are things that I want to leave to my children. Because someday we may forget the exact recipe for things like the stew that our mother taught us, but hopefully they'll remember standing beside us. Hopefully they remember that their hands are capable, and I hope they carry those skills forward.